Okay, so we've got just about a 10-minute sort of stretch and mobility routine that's going to help loosen off your hips and your lower back here. So we're going to start with some side to side 90-90 movements. We're just going back and forth, keeping the heels planted on the floor. And as we kind of get loosened off and we start to feel we're getting into the stretch, we're just going to shuffle our bum and our hands a little bit closer to our heels just to kind of intensify things and make the stretch that little bit deeper and a little bit more intense on those hips. Next, we're going to move into a seated pigeon pose. So we're going to keep our hands on the floor, lift our bum up, and then pop one ankle on top of the opposite knee. When we sit down here, this is probably going to be enough of a stretch. The goal here is going to be keeping our back as straight as we can in the lower back. We can intensify the stretch by either shuffling our bum forwards, lifting our toes off the floor, and we can even ease off or intensify the stretch just by wiggling our hips side to side like so. Now make sure we keep a long back here. We definitely don't want to have you rounding your back. Just take your time and then just relax and take deep breaths and allow your hips and the back of your glutes there to get a nice deep stretch. Onto the other side, we're going to repeat the same thing. You usually find one leg is a little bit more mobile than the other. If that's the case, don't worry, don't try and force it into the position. Just try and find that balance between, tension in the muscle and pain. We don't want pain. So a nice bit of tension, nice little stretch where you can relax into it and take nice deep breaths. Next up, we're going to go into an adapted child's pose here. So it's a nice wide base with our knees, and the goal here is to get the instep of our feet on the floor. So that's keeping our heels and our toes in contact with the floor throughout. We're going to drop their forearms and keep our back nice and flat, and although it doesn't look like I'm moving much here, I'm gently pushing my hips backwards towards my heels. This will be quite tight on the inside of your thigh, so just take your time, don't force it, and rely on your breathing to try and get through this stretch. And then as we relax out of the stretch, we're going to then move into a lat stretch. So it's a similar base with our feet and our knees being quite wide. And what we're going to do is we're going to stretch out one arm across our body and then sit back towards our heels. Now from here, you'll feel a big stretch up the outside of your rib cage and your upper back. And to intensify, we're going to keep the body nice and still and just sort of finger crawl our hand as far away as we can. Once we've kind of reached the limit of this stretch, we're going to again rely on deep breaths, expanding that rib cage, and then that will help loosen off those upper back muscles. Now the reason that we do this is so that the upper back and the sides of your back are loosened off, which is then going to put less strain down your posterior chain into your lower back. So this should help alleviate some of the stress in your lower back as well, especially if you can get your heels and your bum nice and close at this point, so pushing the hips back as far as you can. Deep breaths, taking your time not to overstrain, making sure that you're feeling the majority of this stretch up the side of your rib cage. For our next stretch, we're going to adopt an all fours position, and we're going to pop one leg out nice and straight to the side, trying to keep our foot flat on the floor. The opposite foot, we're going to place the top of our foot on the arch onto the floor and then push our bum back towards our heel. So the leg on the opposite side of my body here is out nice and stretched. We're feeling this up the inside of the thigh and into the back of the hamstring. Again, focus on trying to keep your lower back as flat as possible. Try not to round, and then pop your forearms on the floor just to help support you as you do this. So you maybe see it better on this side. We're going to pop our leg out straight, sit back on our opposite heel, and just allow our body weight to sink down into those hips. That's going to help loosen off the inside of your thigh and the back of your hamstring. Next, we're going to move into a more traditional 90-90 stretch. So it's one leg in front at 90 degrees, other leg behind at 90. From there, that could be enough of a stretch for you. If you want to get a little deeper, we're just going to lean over that front leg, We can elongate our arms, we can pop our arms out to the side for support, whatever makes you feel the most comfortable and still allows you to relax into the stretch. So with this position, we're looking to feel a little stretch on the inside of the hip on the trail leg, and then your front leg you should feel on the outside of your glutes. Again, as we switch sides, we're going to have front leg at 90 degrees, back leg at 90. It's quite important to have your feet flat here as well. Don't want you to be up on your toes, heels off the floor, that kind of thing. And again, once you're comfortable, just lean over that front leg and get in a position that feels good for you, where you're balancing between getting a nice deep stretch and then not overstraining either. Carefully sit yourself up. We're going to shuffle our bum forward. We're then going to hug one leg into our chest, keeping the other leg straight. And then we're going to bring that leg across our body towards the floor. And then from there, we're going to hold that knee down, and then we're going to try and push our back shoulder towards the floor. So it's a spinal twist, trying to open up that lower spine. Now in this case here, I'm able to use the sofa and the fire surround as part of the stretch. I'm able to help to keep myself in the position by using those to give me more leverage. If you don't have that or you don't need that, that is fine, but this is maybe something that I personally struggle with, spinal rotations. So it's quite useful if you do have it to aid getting a deeper stretch. So same on the opposite side, we're going to bring that knee up, get it around as far as we can, and then try and get that back shoulder onto the floor and rotate as far around as you can. So take a deep breath in as we bring the knee back round, and then we're going to gently sit up. From here we're going to move into a butterfly position, so we're going to bring the soles of our feet together. And the closer you bring your feet in toward your body, the harder the stretch will be, so try and find a nice balance somewhere in the middle. Once you find that comfortable position, we're just going to use our forearms and our elbows to gently open up the hips a little further, taking deep breaths and making sure to keep our lower back nice and long so that we're not slumping over our hips. Next, we're going to go into a lunge position, but we're going to pop our back foot on the sofa or against the chair with our knees close to the base as you can get it. The closer your knee is, the harder it's going to be. The further your knee comes from the chair, the easier it will be. The idea here is we're going to try and stop our lower back from arching by tucking our tailbone under and pressing our weight forward through the hips. This is going to open up the front of your back hip here, and it's going to help take pressure off your lower back as a result. It's quite a tricky stretch, so take your time, find a comfortable position for you, and remember to focus on your breathing throughout. So switching sides, we're going to bring our leg forward, again sitting up, being careful not to just arch our back, and instead feel like we're tucking our pelvis underneath and that we're pushing our weight forward through the hips. It's quite an intense stretch, so take your time and find the right balance between effort and relaxation. I tend to find with this kind of stretch, when the feeling is more intense, the more that you focus on nice slow controlled breathing, the easier and more beneficial it tends to become. Now we're going to ease off as we get ready for our last stretch, where we're going to try and open up the lower back and the hamstrings. This is one that you can repeat more than once. We're going to start with a wide base with our feet, and we're going to tuck our fingers underneath our toes with our arms on the inside of our knees. From there, we're going to sit into as deep a squat as you can, trying to get the lower back as flat as possible, using our arms and our elbows to just gently open the hips at the front to help with this. By tucking our fingers underneath our toes, it's going to help us with balance, and we're just going to sit here and take some deep breaths to help relax. We're then going to come out by straightening our legs and tucking our head between our knees as far as you're able to do so without straining. And there we go. Easy peasy, 10 minutes, nice loose hips.